I know I promised you guys a preseason recap for the Utah Jazz when the preseason finished, but I think I'm going to save that for the Friday video since I don't usually drop on Saturday for Utah Jazz content. And instead, I'm going to take a very interesting angle. I wanted to hold off until the preseason finished, and obviously Keyonte George ended up missing one game as a precautionary measure, but he came back healthy, and in the fourth game, he didn't play too bad. So I did want to go ahead and pay attention to a little bit of a small wrinkle between him and Colin Sexton that I think a lot of people don't really discuss enough of. With that said, we're going to be talking about how well Keyonte George did this preseason compared to what he put together last season and his rookie campaign, and what this could mean for, number one, Colin Sexton's minutes, and number two, what we can expect from Keyonte George going forward. With that being said, if you're new to the channel, it's your boy Wraith Hoops. Go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. .9 attempts from the field, and 5.8 of those attempts coming from three-point range. Those were the shooting splits of Keyonte George. Now, with that shot diet, he ended up shooting 39.1% from the field and 33% from three-point range, which, you guessed it, is pretty bad. But it wasn't necessarily as if he was taking the most egregious shots possible. They just weren't falling. And even more than that, I think that the bigger issue with his game is us trying to fit him in as point guard. But since we plan on tanking this year anyways, we can just do like Greg Popovich and the Spurs did last year, where they had Jeremy Sohan, who clearly was not meant to be running the point, run point for a significant period of the season, and call it an experiment. And if it doesn't work, cool. We tanked anyways. That was our goal. We can just say this was under the guise of seeing who guys were as players. And to be quite honest, I'm quite fond of it because it allows you to finally put to rest whether or not Keyonte George is capable of running the point guard spot, which, no surprise to some, in the preseason he didn't do a terrific job. He did show advanced vision compared to what he had in his rookie season, which was to be expected, but considering the fact that he ended up having 3.5 assists to 2.8 turnovers, a near 1-to-1 ratio is not particularly great for your starting point guard on a winning team. Go figure. But at 6'4" and having shot horrendous percentages, to be quite honest with you, his rookie year, despite some streaky good play here and there, he never really strung together 2, 3, 4 games of consistent play where you really looked at it and said, man, he's really knocking down these shots. But in the preseason, and I know it's just the preseason, he finally did it, right? He averaged 15.8 points to go along with 2.3 assists, 3.5 rebounds. He had half a steal, almost half a block, and of course, like I said, those 2.8 turnovers, which is less than desirable. But the point that I want to focus on and harp on a little bit is the shooting percentages and the shot diet. He ended up taking 9.3 field goals from the field entirely, and more specifically, he ended up taking 6.3 from beyond the arc. Now, his shooting splits are night and day compared to the season before, where he shot 51.4% from the field and 44% from three. Now, do I expect him to shoot the exact same way in the regular season? Of course not. Teams actually want to win basketball games there. It is imperative that they win basketball games there. Most teams will be better than us. Most teams will play a lot harder in the regular season because those games matter. And while our games will matter as well, there are teams that are going to need to beat up on us as much as they can so they can get ahead in the standings as much as possible, particularly when it comes later on down the season and the playoff seeding really comes into balance. So, do I think necessarily that this is going to be indicative of him having an all-star breakout caliber year? No, I don't. But I do believe that this is definitely the best and the biggest step forward that we've seen from him. Because in the Summer League, he was okay. I didn't really fall in love with his play. But in this preseason span, the defense was there. It kind of came and went. It wasn't bad, though. I would say there was no stretch where I was just like, this is god-awful. Please get him off the floor. Which I did think during several points during his rookie year. But more importantly than that, the shots that he was taking were shots that I would have liked for him to take. And not only was he taking them, but he was also making them at a high enough percentage for me to believe that if you said he shoots 46% from the field and 38% from three, I wouldn't say that's too far-fetched for him. I think that would be right in line with something that I could imagine him shooting. Now, Obviously, I do think that he's capable of giving you 15, 16 points a night. It just comes down to how many minutes he gets. Obviously, in the preseason, he played about 24 minutes a night, and he's going to play a heck of a lot more minutes in the regular season, so that's going to change things a little bit. The fatigue is going to wear on him a little bit, so the percentages are going to dip a little bit, but regardless, he's not going to have a repeat of last season. I know that Walker Kessler going into his sophomore year failed expectations just a little bit, was really the same player that he was his rookie year, and in some ways, from a finishing aspect, you could argue he regressed a little bit and was a little bit less aggressive, a little bit more timid when it came to attacking the glass and finishing at the rim. But with Keyonte George, I think we're going to see what we would like to see from all of our young guys, and that's a step forward. And to be quite honest, I'm all here for it. Now, the reason why I wanted to tie in Colin Sexton in this, besides the fact that, I love Colin Sexton, is the fact that he hasn't been in really many trade rumors at all. And the reason why, at least in my opinion, is that there's still probably an inkling of an opportunity for him to stick around and be a cornerstone of this team. Now, in my heart, I personally felt like he should have been running the point guard spot, particularly considering the fact that he averaged a career high 4.9 assists, which was up from 4.4. I think he had his third year with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he did this in like 7 to 9 less minutes of action on average during a game. He was also less turnover prone as the season went on. He was locked in defensively. There was never a stretch where I was like, he's getting absolutely cooked on defense. And for him, the effort is always there. He might not always be able to get a great contest because he's probably 6'2" in shoes, but he's always there. He's always communicating. He's always talking over screens, and he brings that dog mentality that this team needs. And I don't think there's another guy on this roster that brings that same level of edge that winning organizations have. And I think that he specifically embodies that. Lowry's more of the calm, cool energy. He has an aura about himself that says, no matter what you do, I'm about a bucket. No matter what you do, I'm going to get mine. So if you really want to stop me, you're going to have to try. You're going to have to make something shake. And it's not going to be easy. But with Colin, it's a little bit different. It's more of, it seems like he's always trying to show you that he deserves to be on the floor with you in that moment. He's taking every step personal. And even when he gets taken off the floor, as we saw last season a lot of times, even in games where he didn't start, particularly in the beginning of the season, even though I felt like he probably should have over Jordan Clarkson, he really just had that energy about himself to where he was going to hype up anybody. If you made a bucket, if you had a nice assist, if you had a lob, if the lob got finished at the rim, if you got fouled and got an and one, he was going to be on the bench jumping up in the air, hyping everybody up. And that's the energy that you need behind everybody. And I think that all of our veterans have a certain niche role, a certain uniqueness about their personalities that makes them valuable for this team and this organization as a whole, especially as you develop all the young guys that are under 22 years old. But for Colin Sexton, I think that there's a little bit of an added edge because he's only 25. He's not necessarily an afterthought. You could say that Jordan Clarkson has already seen his peak. He's slowly going to be on the decline. You could say that John Collins is never going to be worth the contract that he was given, and he's reached the peak of his basketball excellence, and so he doesn't get any better for him. But Colin Sexton has objectively been getting better over the past couple seasons, and despite the injury that was honestly really rough, he came back and he started firing on all cylinders and got better at all the things that everybody said he, quite honestly, in some cases sucked at, in some cases just needed to work a lot harder at. And he came out and he took every opportunity that was given to him, and he didn't take them for granted. He took them and he worked his tail off. And I think that epitome of hard work is something that this team needs. It's something that a lot of the young guys can resonate with and understand, that it's not even a hard over height thing. It's, I'm going to work until I have the skills and the tools in my bag to get whatever Coach Hardy needs me to do done. On the other side of things, he shoots so well from the field and everything, he has a higher trade value than Jordan Clarkson. He has a higher trade value than John Collins. He probably has a similar trade value to a Walker Kessler tier player. I would say he has a little bit more, but the lack of defensive upside, I think the overall efficiency of his offensive game would be the thing that helps him tip the scale in his favor when we potentially shop him around the deadline, because I know it's going to inevitably happen. It happens with all our guys. It's the carousel. It happens every year. But under the assumption that we do not trade him, I think that this year is going to be one where we decide, do we want to say, let's go ahead and re-sign him, extend him out some more years, and keep him as a cornerstone piece alongside Larry Markkinen? Or if we decide, you know what, maybe we would be better suited sticking with the young guys. Maybe Cody Williams shows us something extremely impressive, and the fact that he has just greater sheer length than obviously Colin Sexton has, along with a ideally, and if everything pans out, similar scoring volume, maybe you want to go that route. And if you do end up tanking the way that you expect to, and you end up bagging Cooper Flag, then in your head you say, okay, is Keyonte George going to be a higher ceiling player than what we have in Colin Sexton so far, or what future Colin Sexton looks like in 3 years when he's 28, entering what most NBA players consider to be their prime years up until like that 32, 33, even 34 year mark, depending on the player and the play style. I personally believe that Colin is deserving of opportunities to show us that he deserves to be here, that he should be a cornerstone of the team. And I've always been one of the biggest, glazers of his game because I just love the energy. I love the vibe, and sometimes it will not always win you a game. But he's one of those players where I watch him play and I know for a fact he's never going to short us. If I were to sit there and pay to sit courtside and watch any one player play, I know number one, if he's healthy, he's going to be in the game. And number two, when he's on that court, I'm going to get double, even triple the value of my ticket because I'm going to see this man diving for loose balls. I'm going to see this man having 27 points, having 4, 5, 6 assists, having 4 rebounds, and coming down, getting a stop, and getting all up in somebody's face while we could be down 11 or 13 points. He's going to play the same way when we're down as when we're up. And if that rubs off on Keyonte and we see that same vibe from Keyonte, Keyonte already has that exaggerated swagger. I want to see him lock in on defense. I want to see him become a better playmaker. I want him to be less turnover prone. I want him to take certain matchups personally. I want him to step out on the court and say, no matter who's on the court with me, they can't bang with me. I'm like that. And if Colin Sexton can kind of rub off on him and show him that vibe and put that dog into him, because it's hard to make somebody a dog. You can't make somebody a dog. They choose to be a dog. Everybody's a pup. But choosing to be a dog is something that you can be kind of nurtured into, but you have to decide what kind of dog you want to be. And I think Keyonte George has that energy about him, and obviously has better physical intangibles than Colin Sexton. I would say Colin's probably more athletic overall, but at having 2 extra inches of height and a couple extra inches of length, Keyonte has the ability to physically do things that Colin Sexton can do, along with some extra stuff. And no matter which way we decide to go, I believe that this season is going to be the one that determines for us whether Colin Sexton is a cornerstone piece or whether Keyonte George will end up being the de facto point guard going forward and Colin Sexton will be seeing the trade block. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Did you like Keyonte George's preseason as much as I did? Do you think that it will be, a more efficient or hyper efficient season for him this year? And do you think that they will ultimately end up leaning in the favor of Keyonte George in trading Colin Sexton? Or do you think there'll be a way for both of them to coexist after the season ends? With that being said, it's your boy Wraith Hoops. Go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications if you made it this far in the video. Go ahead and become a member or drop a donation to help support the content. And as always, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.